Roll call, please.
Mayor McKay,
Here.
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Here.
Councilmember Amundson,
Here.
Councilmember Hartman,
Here.
Councilmember Jablonski.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We're going to stand for the pledge in just a minute, but I would like everybody to stay standing when we do for Neil Levinson. Lori Rich Levinson's husband passed away, and Dan Rich's former senator's son-in-law. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Public comment. How many people we got coming? How many you got, Keith?
Sure, Mayor. We have 7 public comment cards tonight. Anyone who wishes to speak during public comment, we need your cards now for purposes of timing. Anyone else? Seeing none, we have 7. I'm sorry? You want to say it? Yeah. Russell, we'll start naming.
The first name is Papa Paul McCarr.
They're not in order.
I had the numbers on there.
I-
And they were shuffled, you mean?
Hello, members of the Town of Southwest Ranches and Town Council. The Sixth Youth Association is excited to inform you that we will be hosting our second annual A Race for Unity and Diversity 5K Run and Walk on Leap Day, February 29, 2020, at the Sikh Society of Florida, located on Sterling Road. Just as last year, we want to showcase the unity and diversity in our community. In other words, we want to invite people from various walks of life, cultures, religions, etc., and foster a sense of community and understanding among them. We strive to promote awareness and acceptance in our neighborhoods and encourage youth activism and community service in order to build a healthier society. The proceeds of this event will benefit the town's very own college scholarship fund, which offers financial aid for students entering college.
During our inaugural year, we attracted more than 750 attendees and raised $10,000 for the town's college scholarship fund. It was a spectacular event, complete with a pre-race circle of prayer, the town mayor's address, ethnic cuisines, and numerous cultural booths. We could not have done this without the town's support and enthusiasm. Thank you. Now we look forward to joining hands with you once again to pull off yet another great event. With that being said, I encourage everyone to take a flyer with them. The flyer contains additional details about the event. As a reminder, the race registration is now open, and there is an early bird discount for those who register prior to February 1st, 2020. Once again, thank you so much for your support in the past, and we could not be more excited to see you all on February 29th. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kathy Cox, followed by Steve Brightcruz.
Good evening, Kathy Cox, 4940 Thoroughbred Lane. I'd like to revisit the plant nursery law legislation you almost passed in December. The council was going to pass a law that required people with horse trailers to park them 25 feet from the rear and side property lines. Then we were going to have to screen them from view with a fence or a hedge. We were also going to have to get a certificate of use from the town, which was about an $80 fee. And then we're going to have to get an annual business license from Broward County, another fee. According to state statute and the Right to Farm Act, all of these laws that almost passed would have been illegal requirements by the town. Let's assume that the council had passed this plant nursery law. Why horse trailers were buried in it is still a mystery to me. Had it passed, the town would have then required me to get a certificate of use, park my trailer somewhere in the middle of the property, screen it with a fence or a hedge from my neighbors, and pay a bunch of money to the town and the county in order to be able to keep my horses in my backyard. All of these requirements, as I said before, were being a direct violation of the Right to Farm Act guaranteed me by the state of Florida. Had the council passed this, what would be my recourse? I would have to sue the town, my fellow residents, and ultimately myself to get back the rights and the freedoms guaranteed me by the state of Florida. Who would benefit? The only person who benefits from this scenario is the town attorney, who winds up defending the town in yet another lawsuit brought against the town's discriminatory and wrongful actions. Sound familiar? This is at least the third time this year the town's attacked the equestrian community. The other two were the McBride case, where he tried to force the guy to build his fence 20 feet from the street when he allowed his neighbor and gave him a permit to build it 12 feet from the street. And then there's the Diamond Eye Stables, where you selectively classified 4 barns in town as commercial property in order to pass an illegal fire assessment fee on the barn. How did we get to this point? I mean, what is it about the equestrian community that y'all seem to have us in your sights? I don't think anybody benefits from all the lawsuit business, certainly not the residents. And who put the trailer legislation in the plant nursery legislation? Who buried it in there? Do you have any idea? I mean, supposedly you all are the ones that, get people to, or get the committee to generate the legislation. If you don't know what's in there, I mean, who asked for that? Did it just fall out of the sky? I think you need to find out who did. And I really think that it is incumbent upon you to do a little research into this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Bright-Cruz, followed by Beth Cohen.
Steve Bright-Cruz, Country Estates HOA. Just as a reference, I'll be up speaking as the chairman of the comp board in a little bit, and I have done a lot of research. I know I was not here at the last meeting, but I have done a lot of research since the last meeting to kind of put the pieces together on that, and I'll be sharing what I have learned at that time. At the moment, I wanted to speak. We had requested, and the town was good enough to coordinate putting together a traffic study in the 185th, 186th area. And I have that here in front of me. Unfortunately, the study makes no sense. It just makes no sense, okay? So we're going to need to do it again. Unless it's then, the only option is that there's a huge pothole in the middle of the road and there's like 1,000 cars stuck in there and they just didn't come out. I don't know. But because it's showing that, on the northern side of 186th, there's about 8,500 cars that went by there. On the southern side of that road, before you get to any exit, any of the side roads such as 63rd, to get off the road, there's 14,000 cars that pass through there. So there's just no way. There's just no way. So we need to redo it, but that's okay because these locations are not the locations we want to put it in anyway. So I would request that we redo this, and I would request a conversation before the locations are put in place. Basically, we need to put one where this was before. We need to put one south of 63rd on 185th, and we need to put one on 63rd between 188th and 190th, so we can really get a good feel for where all the traffic's going. Thank you.
Beth Cohen, followed by David Kaczynski.
Hi, good evening.
You could pull that mic down to you.
Okay. I don't have anything formal prepared, but I wanted to bring up the issue.
Could you talk more into the mic? I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's it.
I want you to bring up the issue of the flight pattern directly over my barn. Every 3 minutes, there's a plane flying directly over. can't really even speak to the person next to you. I'm up at 4 o'clock. I go to sleep maybe at 1 because that's when the planes slow down. And then I'm up at 4 o'clock again when the planes start again. I have an older house, not well insulated. So I hear everything. And when I'm outside with my horses, my animals, it's pretty much nonstop. I know it's been addressed before. I was out of the country when there was a recent meeting on December 17th regarding it. I have friends in Weston who said it's gotten a little bit better in their area. I feel like that's impacted us even more. The planes are lower and more frequent. So requesting possibly a subcommittee. The only way I've been communicating with other people feeling the same way is through the Southwest Ranches Facebook page, but I think a formal subcommittee to address it, to see what we could do, because I know there are a lot of other people in the same situation. Thank you.
Thank you. David Kaczynski, followed by Jim Lasky.
David Kaczynski, 6411 Holity Trail. A couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, briefly, everybody's aware of the town birthday celebration coming on April 4th. Fundraising, we're starting to collect some money. I'd like to encourage everybody to ask your friends to contribute to this very noble effort. More money means more toys we can have at the party. Second, on this Seek Youth 5K run, just want to announce that Sunshine Ranches Homeowner Association made a $500 donation to the cause. And then lastly, now that school's returned, I got a few phone calls about speeding on Mustang Trail and along Appaloosa. And all these are freshly paved roads, and people are speeding on there. And wondering if there's a traffic study we can do to find out if these people are using our roads as a back entrance into Franklin Academy, because it appears to be at school times. So just like to make that request. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Jim Lasky, final speaker, Fred Cox.
Jim Lasky, 5780 Southwest 188th Avenue. I keep hearing it's not a wise idea or it's not profitable to require a business tax certificate in this town. And you don't realize if you have to define your business and the scope of your business accurately and submit a form to the government, okay, you got a pretty good little mousetrap there. And you want to regulate the nursery owners. You want to regulate all these idiots that are in here contracting and driving down to Dade County every day and using this place as a hideout to avoid this kind of thing. What you're doing is you're giving them an unfair business advantage to the legal guys down in Dade County. Just look at people like Tropical Touch or Maturo or whatever his name is, and all these other guys. Every morning I see him on I-75 headed that way. And then if I travel around Dade County, I see him working on jobs. But they've got an unfair advantage, which is not right. Just think if you had a legitimate business and you had to deal with them. So, you know, you really need to look at that. I sent Mr. Hartman, I sent him a detail on it. It's a law. I can't imagine why they don't require it of the Florida Department of Revenue unless, you know, they're one of these incomplete governmental bodies that just doesn't have the tools to really see who's compliant and who's not. I know the Internal Revenue right now, it's got the lowest level of audits they ever had, and that's not a guy I love particularly either. But this business tax and the problems you got, to me, it fits into it. Do you know that if you have to get they got a petroleum license. So if you have one of those tanks in the back of your pickup truck, because you're going out to a job site, if it's over 10 gallons, you've got to fill out a report. So once you have that ID number, and it gets cross-referenced with every place you go to buy petroleum or pesticides and chlorine okay, your pool guys, that keep track of what you do with it. They ask you, where did you dispose of the leftover? Because you know when you change oil, you take oil out, right? I mean, there's big companies that do that. But you got guys that are doing it under the tree, and you're wondering about the water, or you're worried about the water. You really ought to look at that, because I think that's a lot better idea than this other thing that's going to get everybody so excited. And you can separate all that other farm stuff right out of it and maybe have two ideas rather than one that's not going to be right. Thank you.
Good evening, Fred Cox, 4940 Thoroughbred Lane. Oops. I'm here also about the nursery ordinance, and I call it the anti-ag ordinance. This trailer issue really set off the equestrian people, and I offered last time, I haven't heard from anyone, but we can arrange a trailer tour at the park on Volunteer Road if you want. They're stock trailers that have unlimited space in them. You can't buy a one-horse trailer, so if you have one horse, you always have extra slots. It goes on. So after the issue came up, Steve was out of town, in fact, out of the country, I understand. I contacted 3 members of the comp board to find out where the trailer issue came from. One of them was kind enough to call me back. We had quite an exchange. He said that the trailer language was brought to the comp plan board in June, July of 2019, and it was furnished by the town attorney with a 50-foot setback, not 25. They had changed it to 25 feet. And the 50-foot should really scare people with 1 acre. And it was needed because of all the trailer complaints in town. Well, I certainly don't know of everything in town, but I really thought that I would know about a lot of trailer complaints in town. So I thought I'd call code enforcement and find out how many trailer complaints we had. Called Robert, he wasn't available. Called Julio, he answered. For your information, he was very professional, he was courteous, and he was very prompt. So I have all the trailer complaints in Southwest Ranches for the last 5 years. And I'm limited on time, so we'll go through them real quick. The first one was May the 4th of 17 in Rolling Oaks, case number 2017-259. That's it. That's it. We have 1 trailer complaint in 5 years in this beautiful town of ours. And for that, we're going to impose restrictions on several hundred of us? Gee. Where's the vision that Mecca, Freddie, and Johnny had? Only got 30 seconds left, but it's very reminiscent of 2013 when the town complained to the state that the state had weakened the farm laws, and we said to the state, although this law is relatively new, the town has been riddled with complaints. Well, I asked how many complaints we had. 2 complaints. We had 2 complaints about the new law. And for that reason, we went to the state to ask for an exception. Thought you'd enjoy my research. I certainly did. Thanks.
That's it, Mayor.
All right, we got board reports. Who's going first? Steve looks like he's coming up first.
Steve Rycrews, Chairman of the Comp Plan. As I mentioned earlier, I was out of town for the previous meeting, but it did give me the time to do some research on this.
Russell, he might need it for a few more minutes than this.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's not an overly long story, but I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
And so I did a fair amount of research. I talked to as many folks as I could about it. Obviously, the folks that are on the committee, there's sunshine laws, so I could not talk to them about it. But I did talk to a number of other people about it. I wanted to make sure all the facts were straight. So over the summer, the comp plan board was charged, duly, charged by the council as is appropriate, to take another view at the nursery ordinance and try and get it in shape, right? So we worked on it for a number of meetings, probably for about 4 or 5 months, and we worked through it, and nowhere in it at that time was the wording that has to do with the horse trailer. It was not in there at all, never came up in any of our conversations or debate. It was never an idea that was proposed by anyone on the board. It was not brought up at all. When we thought we had completed our work, we took our work and we gave it to the administration so that it could be codified, which is a normal operation. Ours is just English language. We got to turn it into an ordinance. So that's what we did. We turned over our work. It went to primarily the legal team, and I say legal team because it's Keith and also Katie. And they worked with Jeff Kadams to turn it into the actual code itself. When it was brought back to the comp plan board, we went through it item by item. And at that time, as we went through, Jeff introduced each one of the items that was different than how we had originally talked about it. And we talked through them each, and we got to the horse trailer item. And at that point, he said this is an item that was brought into the item at the request of legal and was put into the document. As Fred Cox mentioned earlier, it was originally at 50 feet. There was some debate on the comp plan board, and it was reduced to 25 feet. What I'm doing up here is just passing on the facts as best I could determine them, and I think they are very close to 100% accurate. What I want to say is that I don't think there was any conspiracy here or anything like that. I think probably everybody was trying to do their job. I can't speak for everybody else. I can speak, I think, for the comp plan board. If we could go back, if I could go back, and I think I speak for just because, not that I've spoken to him about it, but because I know the nature of all our conversations over the years and how hard we have worked to try and protect the rural nature of this town. I feel pretty comfortable that if we could go back now, seeing where it was now, we would rip that piece out and we would discard it and wish we never saw it again. It certainly was not something that we wanted in there. How we talked about it and reduced it from 50 to 25. Frankly, I think sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, and that's what I attribute it to. We were looking at that one piece without really thinking about the overall impact to the town and what it meant. So from that standpoint, we as a board, myself as the chairman, I take responsibility for that, and I understand that, and I apologize that it did not get pulled out. It should have. But I think we also have to ask why it was put in there in the first place. I think the legal team needs to, once again, the point is, I don't think that I personally, and this is my opinion, this is not based on any fact, I don't think that there's any, conspiracy or anything here. I think there's probably a reason for it. I'd like to know what the reason is. I have asked that question. I have not gotten an answer to it, but I'd like to know what that answer is. But regardless of it, it went in. That's how it got in there, so that when it came back to the comp board for the second time, that's when the first time it appeared to the comp plan board, and that as it was adjusted with 25 feet, was ultimately voted unanimously by the comp plan board to approve that change. Like I said, for me personally, and I suspect it's true for the entire board, if we had that to do over again, we would have ripped the whole thing out. Thank you.
On Parks Board, I hope we can have a meeting this year. We we haven't had a quorum because we have a very large board, and so we have tried to address that, and hopefully it will work in our interest that we'll be able to now have successfully have our meetings. It's been brought to my attention, and I was going to bring it up to the board, but I think you all should know about it. The park in Sunshine Ranches is secured at night. Nobody can go in there, and usually you'll see the police in there during the day, so you don't see people with ATVs racing around. There is a major problem at the Rolling Oaks Park. It is fenced, but it's not secured. And I have mentioned it before that we need to run a fence from where it ends on the east end, straight across and connect it to the west end, which would be almost in front of the barn where the horseshoe drive is. There is a gate down at the cul-de-sac, and it can be locked. And we need to secure that so that they don't go in there with the ATVs and the trucks. The gentleman down on the end more than once has stopped me, and he says they've been out there hot rodding. They love to do it when it gets wet because it digs in really good, and they slide all over the place down there. He stopped them, and they basically told him to mind his own business. They lived in the ranches, and they had every right to do whatever they wanted in the park. So he said, is there any way of keeping them out? And yeah, put a lock on the gate, but we got to secure the front. I don't think it's going to cost that much to do it, but I think you should definitely secure it. Your park out west is secured. You have a gate, you can lock it, and it can keep people out of there at night. But you can't in the Rolling Oaks Park. So consider it, because we don't have funds for it in the park revenue area. So we'll bring it up at the park, and then it'll get set aside because we don't have the funds. So I'm dumping it in your lap to address and maybe get a price on it and find out and secure it so that at night it can be locked up and these people can't get in there with the ATVs and the trucks. Thank you.
Any other board reports? Seeing no additional board reports, back to the council. Council member comments. Who would like to go first?
I'll go.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I know it's a busy time of the year, and everybody's making a sacrifice to be here tonight, and we do appreciate it. Just don't really have a whole lot today. Just want to make a few announcements. Coming up here, we have this Saturday, we have hazmat at the park, at the barn, if you don't know about it, and it includes shredding, correct, Andy?
Yes, sir.
Includes shredding and prescription drug drop-off if you have old drugs that you want to get properly dispose of. We also have the rescheduled fun horse show on the 15th of February. That's Saturday at the Equestrian Park from 8 to 2, I believe. We have the Flowmobile here at Town Hall on the 23rd of January. And we've got a big day in the ranches on the 29th of February, the Leap Day. In the morning, you get to spend the whole day here in the ranches. You get to walk or run the 5K. It's everything goes to the Ed Advisory Board, and for the scholarship fund. And then we have bingo at the barn. So you can come and have dinner and meet your neighbors and have a little bit of fun with bingo. That's always been very successful when they're both on the same day, And you can get the tickets for the bingo here at the front desk December. Is that correct? As of Monday. Okay. So a good time would be had by all. A great day out here in the ranches. And just want to make a note that on the 17th, January, Martin Luther King Day. Is that correct? Town hall closed?
Yes.
Have it right here. The 20th, sorry. The 20th. The 20th is Martin Luther King Day. Town hall will be closed. And the 17th of February is President's Day. So I got my dates confused. So just wanted to mention that for the record. And that's all I have, Mayor.
All right. Who'd like to go next?
Good evening, folks. I'm not going to be quite as brief as Gary. I've got a number of things I wanted to talk about tonight. So I just went through the Broward Leaders Water and Climate Academy. It's offered by Broward County. I actually went through it 10 years ago when I was on the Drainage Committee. Somebody here at Town Hall sent me the information and said, you might want to look into this. And, you know, it taught me a lot about how South Florida Water Management drains us, South Broward, how the whole system works. And it gave me a lot more context for how our little system here in town works. The reason I went back 10 years later was they added Climate Academy to it. That was new. They only started that 2 years ago. And, you know, whether you believe in climate change, global warming, any of that, is really irrelevant if you go east. One of the things I learned is pretty much all the coastal cities on the east coast of Florida are having big problems right now. You know, we hear about the king tides in Fort Lauderdale and down on South Beach, but all the low-lying communities up and down the coast, every time there's a significant storm, doesn't have to be a hurricane, every time there's a full moon, king tides in the fall, they're all starting to have more and more problems. Some of the cities are putting, I think of them as check valves to stop the water from coming in from the intercoastal and from the ocean through their storm drains. Others don't have the money yet, but everybody's trying to figure it out. And part of the response to what is going on out there, because they're forecasting that, you know, we could be 2.5 feet higher within the next 15 to 20 years from where sea level is now. Now, what does that mean to us? Back of my yard is at 4 feet. So I still got 1.5 feet to spare. But that's not what's going to affect us. And Keith, maybe you can kind of give an update with where you are with the county attorneys on trying to protect us on some of the water things we had talked about. You know, in the very beginning, they talked to us about the issues that they're seeing between water and sewer and the impacts. Then they went through bringing us out to South Florida Water Management, showing the attendees. These are mostly elected officials or like Rod, you know, town engineers, things like that, that were at this water academy. And they showed more or less how the main systems work. They even highlighted Southwest Ranches because we've done so much work here in the last 10 years to alleviate some of our flooding problems. So that was kind of a nice trip right here in our own town. Then they took us up to Palm Beach where they're doing a lot of state-of-the-art work with mostly sewerage. You know, you can't pump it in the ocean anymore by law. You can't pump it in the Everglades. They do some interesting things upstate. They pump it out into fields, let it dry, and then they sell it as fertilizer. So there's all different kinds of solutions out there. But what it's turning into is a major drive in the state against septic tanks. And that was one of the significant discussions at the last meeting, which was last Friday. That was the end of Broward Water Academy. They had legislators in, they had attorneys in, they had a number of people talking on topics that relate to towns protecting themselves, as well as the push in Tallahassee to get everybody off of septic tanks. Now, here in our town, we've got best management practices in place for people that we've got county and state requirements on where you can and can't put your septic tank and your well and all that. So I kind of feel like we're protected, and we're probably getting dragged in with a lot of the bad players, because there's a lot of places around this state where there are homes that are 50, 60, 70 years old that have never had their septic tanks or the drain field, more importantly, inspected. If you remember back in 10, there was a law that was passed to start inspecting septic tanks. Well, that got repealed the following year because nobody really wanted it. But the challenge now is that developers upstate are starting to build homes with septic tanks on top of springs and things like that. So the state is starting to see this as something that they need to get in front of. And when I brought up the fact that very few people outside of our town realize we're on well and septic tank. Southwest Ranches is on well and septic tank. Why haven't they converted to city water? We don't want it. I mean, simple answer. But they talked about how there may be opportunities for those poorer communities to get state grants. Where's Emily? She left. State grants to, replace septic tanks with a city sewer system. And, when they start talking about poor communities and money available for poor communities, I don't think they're going to be lining up to shell out cash to us. So I was going to be going to Broward Days next week, but my work requirements changed today, so I had to cancel. I asked Andy to set up some time with Kristen Jacobs. She's the one leading the effort on a lot of these environmental things. She's from Broward County here. He's probably going to set up a meeting, and somebody needs to explain to her that, this puts our community at risk. We don't have any kind of a municipal system. We don't want a municipal system. We feel that the cities around us don't have the capacity to provide us those types of municipal services, and we need some kind of an accommodation.
Let me jump in with you just a minute. I've been talking, Steve Geller's been pushing that.
Steve Geller's pushing the changes on us.
So I talked with Steve Geller last week, I think it was, Keith. And so Keith's been working with the county attorney to get the verbiage fixed and changed to leave us the way we are. So
That's what I got Keith started on about 2 months ago, Keith.
So I've been talking to all the mucky mucks and big wigs on
This
this.
is at the state level, Doug.
No, I hear you.
Okay, the state is starting to push for it. So, and she's for it. I don't think, I started to explain to her, my elevator speech on why changing this is not in our interests, and it would create big problems. And she was, she was listening to me, but I only had about a minute and a half to talk to her. So if you guys can get in to see her when you're up there, explain the situation, that probably
will help.
We'll
try.
I'm hoping, yeah.
Listen, as you know, I'll meet with anybody we can make that makes a difference.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
whoever we can meet with, whatever grounds we need to, whatever action we need to take, being there, I will see whoever we can see and do whatever we can do.
Well, her explanation to the people that were in the room was that, she's a Democrat. She is pushing uphill because the state government is controlled by the Republican Party. She's been working with various Republicans over the years to try to get this forward. She's concerned because she'll be termed out like everybody else. I think she's got one more term left. But if she's friendly to us, let's get that message out there so that carries forward to the next person that we have special needs. So, good. Thank you, Doug. I would appreciate you taking that upstate. There was another part that was brought up by a couple of attorneys that were there that essentially assist municipalities in protecting themselves against lawsuits. I'll just leave it as lawsuits. I won't make a comment about good or bad or ugly lawsuits. But what happens is that they explained is when hurricanes come and people's municipal services stop, everybody gets really concerned. The first week. The second week, they start to get angry. The third week, they call their lawyers. And then the lawsuits start to fly on, the town's not providing the services that they guarantee. So I asked Newell to look at our comp plan because that's where a lot of our policies are concerning our services. But Keith, what they were saying is any place that we are committing to providing a service, we need a clause in there that says at best efforts or with best efforts or So we have some sort of an out in the case of a, natural disaster or something that's unforeseen that stops the flow of services. Because if we say at best efforts and, there's a hurricane and the garbage can't be collected for a month because the trees and the roads are a mess, people can't start suing us, or they don't have grounds to sue us on for, municipal services that haven't been provided. And the example they gave was up in Jacksonville, Central Florida, Satellite Beach. Satellite Beach was given some roadway by FDOT after the road had washed out 5 or 6 times. FDOT didn't want to continue to maintain and repave it because there were houses on this road. So they deeded it over to Satellite Beach. That made it Satellite Beach's problem. Satellite Beach's policies say that they will guarantee certain kinds of services like the roads, and when the road got washed out, they had to pay $13 million and find the money to repair the road quickly because the lawsuits were starting on how people couldn't get in and out of their homes. So some things to think about, Keith. And Newell, I know you were going to look at it. I don't know if you found anything or anything came to mind. Okay. Gary, did you mention the Mr. and Miss Southwest Ranches?
No, I did not.
Okay. So last Friday night was our annual Mr. and Miss Southwest Ranches pageant. There were about 20 kids who participated. We've had 4 of them now. I've been at all 4, taking the pictures of all the cute kids. This one was by far the most fun. I think the kids are starting to get used to it, that participate in this every year. The DJ, he's found his footing. He's the master of ceremonies. We had Patty and Tom Good. Patty is our school board rep, and Tom is a commissioner from Pembroke Pines. They were the judges along with a couple of other women that judge this broadly, I guess all over the state. And everybody went home a winner, basically. The kids were all excited. I got some of the best smiles out of these kids I've ever seen. They had a blast. And, this wouldn't have worked unless the School and Education Advisory Board and Debbie, I won't know all the names, but they were the ones who put this together. This is the 4th year in a row. They did a phenomenal job. I heard a round number of about $9,000 was raised, which is a little less than half what we raised at the scholarship for the scholarships last year. So hats off to the kids that participated. They're up there singing. They're doing all kinds of great things, showing what great kids we have in Southwest Ranches. And like I said, this wouldn't have happened without the advisory board. They did a great job in organizing this and getting the parents out and getting the cute kids out and making it all happen. So I wanted to compliment the board on the work they did, and of course congratulate all the kids that were involved, because I think there was only one kid who was petrified of being up there. And you can see it in the pictures. He's got a face on that he'd rather been outside running around in the parking lot. So I wanted to cover that. And Gay, the issue you brought up regarding trucks and ATCs, I'm glad you reminded me of that, because it isn't limited just to the barn. Right. And I don't think it's necessarily just a nighttime activity, because now that it's cooling off, I'm walking my dog up at Country Estates. I usually take her every Saturday or Sunday. And, I walk the trails there. I walk the ball field. I usually swoop past the little tot area just to say hello to people that are there. And so about a month ago, around Christmas, so about 3 weeks ago, as the dog and I are going towards the back, out comes 6 screaming 2-wheel off-road bikes. Yeah, and as I'm walking the park, you can see they're back there tearing up the trails with their big knobby tires. Following week, a little less impact, two golf carts full of kids. But then, as I'm walking around the ball field, which, by the way, you can't find the rocks anymore. The grass is growing over them. But I noticed there are donuts everywhere. Now, that park, you're right, it locks at sundown and it's unlocked at sunrise. So this is clearly happening during the day. So, Andy, I don't know if this is something we want to turn the PD onto to.
We do try to do
Okay, keep an eye on it, but, it's clear that people are flying through there on motorized vehicles, even though there's signs.
Try to step it up.
So, okay. We need to give you a badge and a gun.
Okay, come on. Go back and.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're not supposed to. I'll catch up with you later. All right. So, I believe that's Mrs. Cohen, you're still here. We do have a group within our town. I don't know if we call them a subcommittee, but we have a committee that's been going to a lot of the meetings concerning the changes in the air patterns overhead. And the last one over in Weston, were you at that meeting? Okay. It's not going to get any better. They're changing the whole design of the routing of aircraft to make it more efficient, but more efficient isn't necessarily better for us. As air travelers, we may love it, but as residents that live under these, airplanes that fly over all day long, it's not so good. So you may want to reach out to Andy and see if he can get involved in our local group. That's all I have, Mayor. Yep. Vice Mayor. That'd be you. Oh.
No, I really don't have a lot to say. I think everybody's said a lot. I do want to say that Southwest Ranches, when you were talking about septic tanks and vice versa, if you notice, the further east you go, the less grass you see. It's all cement. There's no place for the water to drain into or off of. And they're stuck with that particular problem all by themselves. And I don't care how they fix it because I'm not they. I'm not them. I do know we can have our septic tanks inspected if we want to on a general basis. Some people do because they move here, they're not used to septic tanks and or well water. We have two wells, a deep well and we have a shallow well that does our lawn whenever we feel like doing it, but really doesn't need it that often. So I'm with you on that. Septic tanks, no. They're good. They're fine. There are different kinds. I just sold 2 properties up in Port Malabar. Whole different area up there and different types of septic tanks. They're not all the same, which I didn't know until we had inspections up there. So I'm just saying, we like it the way it is, and we want to do everything we can to keep it the way it is. And I know the gal you were talking about, she's in favor of no plastic bags. She's in favor of all kinds of things that made my hair stood up on end last time she was here. So I know she's very much to my left. She's California-ish. So, and I was born in California, okay. That's all I have to say is that I'm with you on keeping us the way we are as long as we can. The trailer thing, that's another issue. We'll have more to discuss on that as this month goes on. And other than that, I'm just glad we have a lot of people at this meeting. Hello, Joe. And that's it.
Okay. Dee?
Well, I'd like to wish everybody, I hope you had a great and happy New Year and a great holiday. It's good to see everybody. My condolences to Lori Levinson and Nan Rich and their family for their loss. The four-wheelers. I'm not going to ride mine out there anymore, Bob. I haven't been caught yet. I don't want to get caught. I know the kids love it. The big kids love it. Big kids, really big kids, love it. But we have rules.
Most of the big kids have side-by-sides now.
We have to abide by our rules. We can't have everything all tore up and looking nasty and yucky but because that isn't nasty and yucky isn't rule. It's just nasty and yucky. I do want to talk about the issue with the trailers. I'm sitting up here with a lot of my residents from my area, farmers, ag people. What was done and said was absolutely no way to say anything, but it was wrong. Period. Park your trailer wherever you want. Nobody's ever complained before. What was it, 1, 2? In how many years? That's just silly, silly nonsense. But this has been going on for a long, long time. Years. What we gave that board had nothing to do with that. It was about nurseries. So instead of staying here, they went over here. At the last meeting, Fred Cox had said he'd like to see the whole board go. There was a reason why he said that. And we're sitting up here for a reason, to make some strong decisions. They're not fun. They can be difficult because we have friends sitting out there, and some of them is going to affect them. But a rule is a rule is a rule at the end of the day, and everybody has to abide by it. I've thought long and hard about this. It's gotten to the point where I believe, and it's a personal belief, that that board thinks that they are almighty. They rule. They determine what happens. It happens right here. And if you want transparency, you need to send it to us. Come to the town meeting where it's discussed and it's videoed. And you can go on YouTube and watch it whenever you want. At 7 o'clock at night, mostly it's just the board. People don't get invited to it. They don't show up for it. There's no public input, and there's no recording of it. Whatever goes on in there and Emily gets the minutes, that's all it is. And you have no say-so. So, after thinking about this long and hard, I think we should work a little bit harder for you out there, because you voted for us to put us up here to work for you. So I'm making a recommendation. Can I do that?
You can do whatever you want. You can make a recommendation, a motion. You can do it.
I make a motion that we sunset this board and let these things come before us. That's what I think.
I'll second it.
That means make it stop, go away. Let the recommendations from a board. It's just a board. It's a recommendation board, and we can do this work ourselves. I can't go back and forth with you, and you're more than welcome to talk to any one of us after the meeting. We haven't voted on it.
Hold on.
The public
You
comment.
can't go back and forth with the audience.
You made the motion, he
Is-
seconded, now we do public comment, then we
It's-
discuss it, right?
Is that the way you want to
Yeah.
call it? Because nobody called it, is what I'm saying. Nobody said it's open for public comment, did we?
Not yet.
Okay,
So
okay.
I made you made a motion. I seconded your motion, and then he was asking questions. So it hasn't gone to the public yet.
Okay. So?
So, do you mind if I open up the floor, or do you want to finish talking?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll open up that motion, that second, for public comment related to sunsetting the comp plan board.
Yeah.
Come on, Grandma.
Okay, if I understand this correctly, and I'm not opposing it, the board, you give the board direction. In other words, you give them something to look at or something to review. And The issue probably is more that it's not videoed and it's not available for the public. And when they have the meeting, and I will tell you, I was the secretary, we only record the vote and we only record the motion. So there's a lot of conversation that's lost, and there's a lot of stuff in there that nobody is aware of on certain issues and stuff. If you sunset it and it disappears, then any issue that you want to address, you're saying would go directly to you. And that's not a bad idea.
We-
A workshop.
We'd have a workshop, or
And the
we would have
workshops
it.
would be open to the public?
Yes, or we would have it right here at our meetings. We would discuss it. That doesn't mean we have to make a decision right there, but it's recorded and everyone is here. Everyone gets input.
Yeah, I think you have done a very good situation by presenting it this way, because these are laws that we're going to have to live by. Yes. And I think that the public needs more information on it. When it comes before you, they don't have a clue. It's the last minute stuff. If it's discussed and you people are kicking it around and doing what the board has done, then the public should be very much aware of what's going on.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's,
Thank you.
it can be, we can discuss it as much as we want. We can discuss it over and over, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you come and something's been presented to us, we don't get to discuss it that much. We have a couple of times and then we've got
All right.
to vote on it.
Let's not go back and forth. Let's let the public talk.
As I told you before, our last meeting, I do a lot of research. And I know you all remember when I was coming around here talking about the medical technology that's available through an iPhone and maybe some other apps by now, developed at the University of Miami for stroke. All right? I attended the fire board meeting. So when I walked into the room, the first thing that they did was they had a little meeting or discussion, and they limited public speaking, okay, to 2 minutes or some crazy thing. All right? Then as the meeting progressed, I mentioned the stroke. They were the biggest impediment to emergency medical treatment. They were responsible for it. Within a week, okay, the unions had voted to allow other stroke treatments. In other words, they abolished that protocol. Then the next thing that came up, and Doug McKay was there, they talked about that stupid fire truck you bought, right? So I said, did you check all that out? I happen to deal with the people that fix State County's fire trucks, the same engine. The only thing is they were ambulances and not fire trucks, but it's the same frame starting off, right? Well, you know the result of that, and I got up in a meeting just like we have here, and I called the guy a liar to his face from Rosenbauer, okay? So nobody gave a crap, and now you're stuck with the fire truck, and you want to sue the guy, but you can't because you signed a waiver, all right? So the board thing, I think you're perfectly correct. And I also want to make another suggestion. I think you ought to, if you want to have a board and listen to some input, get people that are professionals that live in this town that really understand engineering or some other specialty that would really be helpful. That's what a real company does. They don't hire some guy because he's a friend of somebody. That's a sure sign disaster, okay? So you're right.
Related to this.
Steve Rycrease, chairman of the potentially defunct comp board. I do want to set a couple of, we serve at your pleasure. Do what you feel is best, and I'm fine either way. I'm not going to weigh in on that. Whatever you feel is best, do it. I do want to set a couple of things straight that were misrepresented just now. It was stated that we do not allow public input. That is completely false. we do allow public input or as much as they want. We've never, that I can recall, ever limited people to 2 minutes or any other time limit. They're allowed to do as much, we want to hear what they have to say. That's what we're there for. I would like to address the comment that was made about the minutes. The way we take minutes is as we were directed by the town administration, not to include all that other stuff. That is not something that we chose to do. That is the direction of this town. So let's be clear about that. And I think you'll find that those minutes are kept that way in accordance with the town direction, which I think is actually wise direction. I'm not disputing that. I just want to make it clear that it's not that we're, it's not our choice. We're following the proper direction, but that's the way it's kept in for all the boards. And so, we're here to try and assist. And if we're not assisting, then do away with the board. I get it. One thing I will say, though, is that the other comment was made that, the public doesn't show up or they don't know about it. Well, let me tell you something. Your workshops are not advertised, and the publics don't know about that either. So if you're going to move it to your workshops, you better advertise your workshops because right now you're calling the kettle black. Thanks.
If I may I?
Go right ahead.
I don't know if it's a mother may
Go right ahead.
or what. I'm new. I don't really think throwing the baby out with the bathwater is the best thing. I don't know enough about what has just gone on to say throw out an entire board. I would like to find out more about it, discuss it more, and then make a decision because I believe we had a schedule in the 20th, the 23rd or the 20-something, to go over some of that language and what was presented. And at that time, going over it with the people involved with it, maybe then we will be able to make competent decisions as to doing away with a board. But I would like to know more, and that's my personal opinion.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the intent was to have the board come with us at that meeting on that discussion. But I think moving forward, the goal, what Dee's motion was to sunset that board. So that doesn't make the board, it kind of eliminates the board for now, and you bring it back when you feel you need it again. So some boards have a strict individual purpose that you create them for and you use them for, like the fire board or different boards. And that's kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a learning curve here. Okay.
Right.
So, and I'm not afraid to say so.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So the board would just be kind of parked in the motion that I'm seeing that I
And then we
seconded.
would discuss.
And I'm hoping on the 23rd got moved to February 13th for that.
Hasn't been moved.
No, not
Hadn't
for
been
that.
moved yet?
Talk about that.
Okay. So, anyhow, so my thought was that they're going to be part of that discussion because of what went into it initially.
Okay.
But moving forward, I didn't, under that huge mistake that just happened, that really nobody has any answers for. I got some different answers than what Steve got, but I'm not going to get into all that.
Right, but we're going to be able.
Bob's the council member liaison to that board. Steve's the chair of that board. I was at most of those meetings. Bob's been at most of those meetings. It just so happens that none of us were at a meeting when one of these things happened.
Right.
So,
No, well, I can't say I'm thrilled with anything that I read having to do with any of that. But I was under the impression that we were going to be discussing that to try and delve into it, get rid of
Well,
it if we needed to.
I fully
I
intend
just
to
want
still do that.
understand.
Public comment.
we are, but she had some
But we-
questions
but-
and was
but
talking.
We have council member comments for that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but we had a guy who just walked back to his.
I'll get him back up here.
Well, this isn't the way we do things, Doug.
Hold on. Excuse me, sir. You're the mayor?
Mayor, you're not following our normal protocol.
I'm sorry. We tend to go off things to make things work for everybody. So you're not running the meeting.
I'll
I
hold
am,
my
so.
comment until after the public is finished.
All right. Come on back up.
My name's Scott Tomasulo. I've been living here since 1999.
Into the mic, if you would, please.
My name's Scott Tomasulo. I live at 14400 West Palomino Drive.
I've never really met any of you until the last few, maybe week. And any of you know that on the corner of West Palomino Drive and Volunteer Road where Publix is, there's a barn at the end of that road on the
Yes.
corner? Do you realize there's been 9 smash and grab robberies there in the last year, only at that one barn? Realize
No
that?
clue. Well, on our police reports. we
Well,
get.
no, forget about the police reports because it's a very, very important fact that really doesn't get looked at. It's overlooked. Well, since maybe the last 2 weeks, you know, I've had some issues that have come up and I've paid attention and talked to my neighbors. And I'm really surprised at the things that I hear that are going on with lawsuits and litigations and different things in our town and how they're being handled. Because being in business as long as I have all my life, you try to stay away from these types of things. You try to handle things in a manner that you could pretty much resolve really basic issues with rules and laws and codes that everyone's supposed to follow. But in this town, how this town was developed, it was developed on relationships, not knowledge, not skills. That's how everything works nowadays. And that is a problem that we face in this town because the majority of the people that I talk to, which really just consists of a few neighbors on East and West Palomino Drive, they don't want to be bothered with this mess. So we have to try to create an atmosphere that's going to draw more residents in here so we could actually get things done. Because all this talk about barns, if anybody's family eats off of a barn, it's mine. We have 28 horses in our barn.
Give him another minute.
There are so many issues that I don't think the board really realizes about construction, about ag exemptions, about other families, the amount of stress.
I believe your comment and your conversation is more of a public comment than related to this
Well, it's
discussion.
related to this because it has to do with the board's decisions.
No, it has to do with one board.
Okay. Well, then, I'm sorry.
It's not a parks board. We have a variety of different boards within the town. This
Well, I
has
would
to
just
do with
voice
one of them.
An opinion that really has to do with being a resident here.
Okay,
and
but I'm saying,
I haven't paid much attention to
I
what's going on
appreciate it.
with
I
one
thank you for
meeting.
coming out, but it's more of a public comment type
Okay,
of thing.
sorry.
So that's okay. You don't know. You're coming for the first time. We appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, please get involved.
Yeah.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jim Albritton, 5600 Southwest 166 Avenue. I am probably the newest member on this comp board, appointed probably 4 to 5 months ago. I got into the middle of the landscape discussion, and after listening to the board, and the board is very diverse. You have horse, you have ag, you have non-ag, you have people from all different walks on that board. That resolution went back, or I say resolution, that recommendation went back to be put into the form, like Steve said earlier, of a resolution. When it came back to us, that was added. That's not something we did. I'm not taking the blame for that. It's not me. It wasn't the board. All right? It was given to administration, and I'm not blaming anybody. It was just given to administration. When it came back and we saw that there was a 50-foot setback, we did the best we could to make it a better thing by changing it to 25-foot. Now, we're not going to go against council or anyone else and take it completely out. That's not our thing. If you don't listen to council, you're going to get yourself in a whole world of crap real quick. So to stand here and to blame this board for this is wrong. And you can take it any way you want to take it. Do whatever you want with the board. It's not going to hurt my feelings. But I'm not going to stand here and take the blame or let the board take the blame for something we had nothing to do with. We did the best with a bad situation that was given to us. I'm sorry it turned out that way. I was here the night that it was read, and I know that they wanted to hang everybody that was on the board. And if you'd have raised your hand, they'd have probably took you out in the parking lot and hung your ass. But I do not think that taking the board away is going to do any good. This board is a very intense board. Got a lot, like I said, a lot of diversity on the board from the people there, and I think they make very good recommendations. Ultimately, it is up to you to make that final decision, and you made the right decision by tabling that issue. And that's what your job is. We only recommend. So I thank you for your time.
Here we go.
We haven't started the meeting.
Newell Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. The board, Comprehensive Plan Advisory Board, takes those items which are comprehensive plan, and they're the only ones unless the council assigns something to them. They were assigned the nursery ordinance, and they were also assigned US 27 ordinance by the council. Most of the people have no idea how an ordinance works or the ramifications of it that are on the board right now. They look at it, and if a word is the instead of those, they don't know the difference legally. That's where we take and we send it over for the administration, our planner, our legal counsel, and the council to take a look. And since most of the council is at the comprehensive plan, they can speak up at any time. But most of the time, everyone stays silent and just lets it ride. If you're not comfortable with something, you need to speak up. Because if we don't have all of your cooperation, it's not going to pass. And you're going to end up with the quagmire you've got right now. Someone should have read it, and someone should have looked at it, and someone should have said, hey, what's wrong with this? We get something from legal or something from the planner. If we can ask the planner or legal, why is this in there? The board does ask that question and sends it back sometimes. But if it's put in there by them, it is their responsibility to explain it to you, our elected officials, because you have to make the final decision. If you cannot, these problems are not comprehensive plan problems. These are ordinance problems, and that's all it is. The comprehensive plan is fine, and the work that they do is fine on that, because we're looking 40, 50 years down the road. The board is looking 40, 50 years down the road for the best interests of our town. Thank you.
Brett Cox, 4940 Thoroughbred Lane. Thank you, Dee. I think twice in 20 years, someone's listened to me. I feel real good tonight. Actually, what I said was, if the board did that, they should resign because they don't represent us, the ag people in the town. And if the board didn't do that, as some of them said, then they should resign and protest until the person who put it in there confessed and explained who, why, what, and where. And we keep dodging the bullet, but Mr. Polikoff is here. Surely he can give us some insight of how that language got in there. The other thing we were frustrated with is that we didn't know anything about that until Monday. It was posted Monday the 13th. No, I'm sorry, Monday the 6th at 4 o'clock. I found it at 4:20. It was buried page 53 to 65 on a 186-page document. It wasn't quick and easy to find. I scrambled as fast as I could. I hadn't even read it yet. It was still printing out. Called Bob. He hadn't gotten it yet. I had a meeting to go to. So we were like shocked that this was in our hands, and presumably y'all were going to vote on it Thursday. So that was part of our struggles as well. And I'll say what I've said several times since. It shouldn't come to the board unless one of y'all signs off on it. As an individual, can't put something on the agenda. I can't bring you a resolution or ordinance. Neither should any board unless one council member signs off so we have someone to go to. Meanwhile, thank you.
Any additional public comment on this matter? All right.
Debbie Green, 5201 Southwest 199th Avenue. I just in regards to just the advisory boards, I mean, I've been a resident out out here since before Southwest Ranches was a town. That's part of what makes this town so special. It's part of what you all, you're so proud of, all the volunteers in this town, that if something needs to be done, you can count on your residents and your volunteers to be there. I think that those advisory boards are also what makes this town so special, is you have residents from, you have them, they're appointed by different councilmen, so you have residents from all over the town to advise. That's what they are there. They don't make any decisions, requirements. I'm losing the words. I'm nervous. But they're there just to discuss. You bring maybe something to them to discuss that issue, and for them to come back with what they think is best for the town. And then it goes to the council to then vote on it and set what is done. They're all noticed. They're on the calendar. There's times where I've been to that comp plan board, on certain occasions, because I know that there's something on there that I want to hear about, I have a question about. And they're definitely noticed. They're in every calendar. They're on the website. So as far just some of the comments that were made, they're just totally not true. And again, I just think the advisory boards are part of what makes this town special. Thanks.
David Kaczynski, 6411 Holiday Trail. My understanding is that the comp plan board was to deal with the issues of the comp plan, and any additional authority that was dictated by the council falls on the council before giving that authority to them, and they can review an ordinance, okay, work on the ordinance, but the primary issue for comp plan, my understanding, is for comp plan. And it was caught last minute, but the issue on the trailers, we've heard, wasn't even discussed, except when it was brought back from legal. And I think if you had anybody to point a finger at, it would have been them. Thanks.
Any additional public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to the council. Delsa?
Can I jump in here?
Sure, jump on in.
Okay. First off, we depend on the boards to screen a lot of stuff. I think that's the worst idea I've heard all night, D. I disagree with you 100%. Okay, and that's my right to disagree up here. We ask these people to spend all this time reviewing all these laws, rules, and regs so that they can come back to us with a recommendation. You're literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater on it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Okay, I mean, you're hitting a very tiny nail with a very large hammer right now.
We're not talking all boards, remember. We're talking
We're talking about one board, and I totally disagree with it. I think it's a very bad idea. We rely on them to review our comprehensive plan, and that's what they need to continue doing. We give them stuff to do occasionally, like this, and we decided we didn't like it, and we pulled it right off the bat, and it was gone. And it may come back. It may come back in a different form, something to that nature, and we'll get to review it again, and we may pull it again. This is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. I am not in support of this whatsoever.
Okay.
Letting you know.
Anyone else?
I've been to the meetings and Parks Board meeting, school board, all of them. And when verbiage comes back to you and you don't like it, you know what you do? You take it out. Send this back. Scratch this out. I don't like the way this sounds. You do it all the time. Why didn't you do it this time? Why did you leave it and vote on something else? Because somebody made a motion to change the setback. You didn't even like it to start with, but yet you voted on something else. That's a failure in itself. I'm sorry. I'm not going to settle for that. You shouldn't have to settle for that. That's not what it's about. First of all, we didn't ask for you to discuss that. That's not what we sent to you. And when you found it in there, it was highlighted. It was brought to your attentions that it was there. All you had to do was nix it. Steve had to say, Somebody needs to make a motion that this verbiage is bad. Let's vote on it. Done. You didn't do that. And I do have residents that came here that I am trying to help, that I can understand their point also. I'm not trying to throw baby out with bathwater. I'm not trying to take credit away from volunteers or anything. I was a volunteer. Bob was a volunteer. We've all been volunteers. The point is you didn't do your job either. You seen it in there and it was highlighted. It was highlighted and brought to your attention.
Okay, come on. You guys know better. All right, you guys know better than hollering from the audience. Come on. You're a former council member. You're doing this? Come on, please.
Let's just vote on it.
Are you finished?
D,
We haven't spoken.
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking that we should go ahead with what we were gonna do later in this month and make a decision then at that time, how we think it should come out.
I don't have a problem with any of it. I'm not saying we have to make that
Yeah, I
solid
just want to make
decision
sure I know
tonight.
where
I mean,
what you're
Listen,
saying.
it can get
I
voted
made a
down
comment.
now and get brought back later. It doesn't matter.
whatever.
Okay.
You want more input? You
Okay,
want to hear
but we
more about
will-
it? It's okay.
If we vote this down, your motion, and I love you, we will have our meeting as planned on the 23rd-ish or whenever that was.
We're having it.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm in your court.
Okay.
Bob?
Yes, so I'm amazed that anybody would want to sunset this board. I sat on that board for over 10 years. I was chair on and off, vice chair. In those 10 years, plus the time I've been on the council, I've missed 2 meetings. So I don't just show up at that meeting occasionally. I find that meeting to be extremely important every month because of the subject matter discussed. The whole time I've been on the board, anybody who has served on that board has taken their role and responsibilities very seriously. Something happened here that has thrown everything out of whack. And that something was dropped in, apparently by legal, that the board didn't catch. We caught. It's the way things are supposed to work. And now the board is being looked to be dissolved. You know, I don't see it because what I don't think certain council members understand is how much work this board does, that they do very effectively. You know, we look at the flu components every year. We look at all different components every year to help the town plan. There are a lot of unsung tasks that are accomplished by that board year in and year out that are like clockwork, that are necessary for the town to function. Sure, we could pass it off to staff to do that. We wouldn't get it done up here. It wouldn't happen because there's a lot of discussion that we'd have to have a workshop every month instead of the comp plan board meeting. And then what are we really accomplishing? Because they've done a great job over the years. There's a ton of legislation we have in place that was vetted through the comp plan board and then recommended to the council. And generally, we do have a discussion, and the prior councils have had discussion on the feedback they've provided, but it's been a very successful process all these years. If there's something we need to fix, that's fine. But to start with this board and then saying, oh, we should look at maybe sunsetting other boards, why are we doing this? Because somebody's upset with an outcome? And I get what the Coxes are talking about. This should never have happened. We should have never had any. Fred called me as soon as he discovered it. Bob, have you seen this? That night, I wasn't planning on reading the ordinance, so the next day, I went home and read, and I said, this doesn't belong in here. Why would we ever have, we were trying to resolve the issue, just for those who aren't aware. There's a nursery that popped up next door that really upset a lot of people. And the goal of the comp plan board, really the council, was to resolve that problem. Somehow, that ordinance got something backed in, just like they do in Tallahassee. You slip something in at the last minute that precluded parking of trailers within property lines, things that don't belong in a nursery ordinance got in there. Now, again, I was at the meeting where it was discussed, and that went over my head. Might have gone over my head sitting up here as well. But the five of us sitting up here are really the last recourse on things happening properly and proper representation of the community. Saying that this board doesn't represent the community, then you've never been to a meeting. And as Steve said, there's public comment. People participate in the discussion if it's the first time they've ever shown up. If you want to find a place to get involved where you think you can make a difference, just show up at these meetings and provide your input. You know, you being a farmer and an equestrian, well, it's a good place to get to know what goes on and also to contribute on things like we're talking about here. I'm passionate about this board because I've been a part of it for a long time and I'm the council liaison. I think it's a very bad idea to eliminate it because we're shooting ourselves in the foot because we're angry. You know, cooler heads, folks. Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome. So let me tell you the reason I second this. I don't have a problem doing more workshops at all. And workshops may basically do what the board would be doing if we do them. But we can have them videotaped, recorded, public comment. You can advertise and you come out. Not that you don't have public comment and that we don't allow people to speak at the boards, because I've been there and I do that. And as a councilman went on there, I speak up. So when the comp plan board was assigned this nursery bill, I said, you're wasting your time. I don't think it's going to pass. Did I not say that? Bob, you were there.
You said that, Doug.
Okay. I just want clarification because I attend those boards and attend those meetings. I said, listen, I think you're wasting your time. So I was in support of where they were headed and what was going on because it was affecting what the state says the ag people can do. Okay? So I just want that stated and said right up front. So part of the reason with that huge mistake, it gave me a little bit of a bad taste for a little while here, and I just thought we should take back control of it for a little while. Not that we wouldn't send things to them or restart it when we need it, but I think where it's been and where it's gone and where we're at, that, you know, we'll see how it plays out in the next couple of meetings. But anyhow, let's call this question on this motion. No. Seriously, we've already in public comment. It's going to either go to bed right now or not. It'll come back later, whatever the case may be. Sorry.
Councilmember Amundson?
No.
Councilmember Hartman?
No.
Councilmember Jablonski?
No.
Vice Mayor Schroeder?
No.
Did you say no?
I said no.
Okay. Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion did not pass by 4-1.
All right. You done with your public comments?
Me?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No.
Go on. Floor's still yours.
Just so you all know out there, this is all an act up here. We really do love each other.
Forever.
And most of you is out there too. Even you, George. Not a problem. Not a problem. You have to dig deep, and you gotta look wide to make sure that everybody's happy. This isn't a personal vendetta or anything like that. I've sat on boards. I have gone to the comp board. I've been there when those comp boards have really gotten rough and tough. And I'm not saying they're bad, you know. They beat things up and they tear things apart and make it actually a little bit easier for us to eliminate all the garbage in between, basically, is what it is. But the way this was done, like I said, I know you have the authority and the power, and I'm not beating you up back there, Steve. I'm not. You already did your I'm sorries. You know, you took blame for your board. which you don't even really have to do. But you had the power to change it. So, you know, I have to watch out for everybody. And when I heard about the trailer thing, I just sat there with my mouth hanging open, like, what are you people talking about? First of all, it's a mobile thing. It's not like it's stationary and it never moves. It moves all over the property. Moves horses. Moves to the west, the east. So, I'm ready to be open about everything, but I still feel very strongly that you know, it was maybe we need to keep more things here and not send everything over to the comp board.
Prerogative.
Right.
All right.
Doug, can I just make another comment?
Go
on
right ahead,
This
Bob.
particular topic.
Go right ahead,
Sorry.
Bob.
Delsa's got to go shopping.
I'm sorry.
You know, we talk about what's gone on in the last year. We really, I was looking for some information, and I actually figured out that we first asked the comp plan board to look at this nursery thing 2 years ago already. We asked them to relook at it after Katie Edwards redrafted, if you remember. So this is,
Long time.
if I want to take some responsibility on this, maybe we should have carved this up into smaller pieces that they could have come back and we could have up front said, you're
Something
going
we'll
down
look
the
at
wrong
moving
track.
forward.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So something to look at.
Something you need
Go
to
ahead.
add to that, it came out of the board in this process, was the, we now have a special exception procedure.
Yeah,
And we didn't have that before.
yeah.
You know, that came out of this whole process of these last 2 years.
That came out illegal, actually, but yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
you're right, but that's you know, that was where it was kicked around for, you know, to ad nauseum, you know.
Mm-hmm. Keith?
No, are you on to legal comments?
I am, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. I wasn't going to address the ag ordinance, but I'm happy to just briefly, and that is, the good part about it is you all have found a consensus on the ordinance, based upon the discussions fully tonight. But for the trailer language and the certificate of use language, there seems to be full
Don't get ahead.
agreement, but meaning that those were the only objectionable comments that were raised in the ordinance. So I think that was pretty interesting.
We didn't go
You
through it
know,
all, but go ahead.
But that was the only thing addressed
I'm gonna
as
talk.
being
Yeah.
objectionable.
I'm gonna address
As far as the trailer issue, quite frankly, I don't even remember it. I asked Jeff Kadams where that came from, what it was about. Apparently, the section that it's in, it says parking and storage of vehicles. So when reviewing it, I said, where are you allowed to store the vehicles? And he said, it's not in there. And I said, well, just take the other language in the code about storage of vehicles and mirror the language in the code and let the comp plan board review it, which he did. He put in exactly the same language about storage of vehicles for anyone else who brings home their vehicle. Okay, that's exact language. It's a mirror image that if you drive your semi-trailer home or if you drive your horse trailer home, it's the exact same language. It's a mirror image language. He then typed it and put it in. He highlighted it in yellow. He sent it to me, and I forwarded it immediately to the comp plan board with a note. And it was on August 5th at 7 p.m. I was not even in Florida at the time. I wrote, Jeff, I'm fine with the language you added, and I sent it on to the comp plan board. Never touched it. Just forwarded the email directly. Steve will verify that is correct because I resent him a copy of the email today to refresh his memory. It then went to the comp plan board. It was highlighted in yellow. The comp plan board debated it, changed it, and passed it. So, passed it as 25 feet. They changed it from 50 feet. That's what happened. It wasn't nefarious, It was trying to mirror image language for residents who drive trailers who also potentially drive a truck home. It's the exact same language in the code. So if you didn't like the truck language in the code, it's the same language. You would change one or the other. So there was no secret here of what happened. It was just mirror the language in the code so both sections are the same. So that's how that came about. And I did forward Steve a copy of the email again today to show him that it was not legal who drafted the language. We forwarded it exactly as it was drafted in the code by planning staff. And thank you for Steve for calling me earlier to asking me the question because I was able to show him exactly how it germinated. More importantly than this is the issue that Bob Hartman brought up and Doug about the water issue, because that really is a major issue impacting the town. Councilmember Hartman is correct that roughly about 2 months ago or so, he said, hey, I hear the county's, proposing some language that really may be devastating to the town relating to the necessity to hook up in water and sewer. And we started looking into it, and he was absolutely correct. The language that was being proposed could be very, very harmful to the town. In the same vein, they are looking at state legislation apart from the county legislation, which would also potentially be harmful to the town, similar to which they tried to enact several years ago. As a result of the back and forth with the county, we modified the language a little bit. They weren't going all the way to where we wanted them to go to protect us, but we were starting to get some protections in the law as it was going forward. While all this was occurring, there were residents in the town who wanted to hook up to water and or sewer in the town, and we became very nervous as staff because it could dictate that others within a quarter-mile radius of the new connection would also have to connect based upon the new law that the county was considering. As a result, we meaning legal, we brought it up at the council said correct, said we're going to hold off approving the connection until the county makes a decision, because the county's 30 to 60 days away from making its decision on that. As a result of the council saying, yeah, don't do anything yet until we find out where it's going, I call them lobbyists, builders of the town, et cetera, started calling council members and the mayor complaining about the fact that staff was not approving the water and sewer hookups that they were seeking, to which I know in the mayor's case, because he was referring for 2 weeks ago, said until we find out what's going on with this, we could be jeopardizing every other resident in that area. The mayor immediately called the sponsor of the legislation, Senator Geller, who may not have had, saying this artfully, the clearest grasp on actually what potentially the legislation would do. And one thing that he told the mayor was that it wouldn't affect existing homes, and of course that language is nowhere, in the ordinance at all.
Bear in mind, Keith, he's the chair of the county water board.
Right.
So there was
And
definitely
our representative.
So there was definitely some confusion as to the language in the bill. Andy and I have had numerous conversations with Mike Owens, who is the attorney for the county that's in charge of the bill. They've been very, very wonderful to work with and are working very hard to state our reasons for our objections and our issues to their client. We thought today that we would have a very big impact on the discussion, because there was supposed to be a meeting on this topic at the League of Cities, but at the last minute they canceled the meeting. So as a result, it's going to get delayed a little bit more. But I will tell you that based on the last conversation that Andy and I had with Mike Owens, is what the town is pushing for is what Lil Sayer and another group did 30 years ago when they amended the comp plan of Broward County to state that if you're in the rural ranches or rural estate land use category, that you shall be exempt from the connection requirement. The one difference that the county was considering adding on our last call is that if you are currently in the rural ranches or rural estates land use category, and the reason why they want that is because they don't want cities to quickly change everything to rural ranches or rural estates to avoid the hookup. So when any of you speak to our elected officials, meaning the county commissioners, it's going to be a big lobbying drive, and we'll be at a future meeting. We'll discuss it more, to call them and ask them to adopt the language in there to exempt existing rural ranches and rural estate land use categories, so that it does not force a full connectivity for all the properties in the ranches. And Andy, I think I'm summing this up as best as possible, but it's been a continuous project for you and I to try to get the county to change the law.
Yeah, you've been very accurate. The only other thing I do want to share is we are aware that there are other municipalities that are opposed to this ordinance, some of them for different reasons, and we're looking to kind of unite and strengthen our voice by bringing in some of that opposition from some of those other municipalities as well.
Yeah, and in fact, on that vein, and absolutely, Councilmember, 1 second, just to finish the thought, Parkland voiced tremendous opposition because some of their residents claimed that their connection would be $10,000, and they didn't want to spend the $10,000. So Parkland actually has actively been in opposition as well. I'm sorry, Councilmember.
You're more or less suggesting a grandfather situation if you're talking about people who've lived here up until today. Is that what you were kind of talking about?
What we're
Grandfathering in?
saying is that if you presently live in the rural ranches or rural estates land use category,
Doesn't affect you.
that this law would not affect you.
Shall not
It's actually what is in the law today. But if you look at the version of the bill that Councilmember Hartman gave me, the language that's there today that exempts rural ranches, rural estates had a line through it. They tried to remove our exemption. So now, based on our opposition and work, they're trying to put our exemption back in. And that's what we're working to trying to do. But absolutely, the state law could have a devastating effect as well, and that's something we're also monitoring.
Just to, I know this is your time, Keith. Mayor, would you indulge me just for a
Go
kind of a-
ahead.
You know, Keith, when you start paying attention to what they're doing in Tallahassee, they have no regard for little old Southwest ranches. At some point, it's a fait accompli, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. My gut is with all the other crazy things going on, weather-related, they'll find a reason to push us into it. So we probably need to start strategizing on how and what, because if we're going to run sewers and water down every street in our town, I mean, we're talking about probably $100 million project. I mean, you know, I'm guessing. I'm not that type of an engineer. So say it's $1 billion. Where would we ever get that kind of money?
Lobby.
I mean, that's not a tax increase.
Get our lobbyists busy.
So, I mean, we're going to have to, we got to push. But I don't know what Plan B is at this point. Thank you.
Mayor, other than that, I hope everyone had a happy holiday, a happy new year to all. And I mentioned this also to Councilmember Hartman, unrelated. The vacation watch that the town of Davie does, their PD, is awesome. Highly recommend it to anyone going out of town. They'll drive by your property for free 5 times a day, send you constant emails that they visited your property and there are no issues. Very important for anyone going on vacation. Just go to the Town of Davie website, register for the Vacation Watch, and it's one of the better programs I've ever seen for public service. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have 3 things. There's been a lot of discussion looking back at that nursery ordinance and how things evolved. I want to stop that for a moment, turn around, and let's look forward. At the last meeting, you all tasked me with doing a little homework on this and some consensus building to come back and report to all of you, and that is scheduled for the January 23rd meeting. What I have done in the meantime is in working with staff, and thank you, Emily, I recognize that there were some residents who had issues in reading through the ordinance language, the strike-through language, the underscore. If you're not used to looking at legislation, it potentially confused the issue. So the one thing we wanted to do was try to simplify that so that anybody could understand it. So what I have done, which I've shared with you previously, and I'm going to share with the public tonight, is we put kind of a synopsis together of just the language that was contained within that ordinance. There's no advocacy here. Staff is not taking a position. This is a policy decision ultimately up to the council. But what I wanted to do was just spell out just clearly the different items that were contained within that ordinance. My intention is, as I've shared with you all previously, is to get feedback from all of you individually and then share that with you publicly in the meeting on the 23rd. I have extra copies of this document, which I'm going to put out on the back table following my report. So the public will have the opportunity to look through it. It's very clear that the trailer portion of this is certainly dead in the water. With all of you, that's fine. It's in here because it was in the ordinance. It's not because staff is recommending or advocating for that. I want to be crystal clear about that. So what I will do is get feedback from all of you on the various components. If there are any aspects of this ordinance that you like, we'll express that consensus at the meeting on the 23rd. If there isn't, it'll be dead and gone at that point. So I'll look for further guidance from you once I'm able to report to you in a public meeting the feedback that I've gotten from all of you. Do any of you have any questions on that?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's one. The next item I wanted to bring up was at the next meeting on the 23rd, we had scheduled a special meeting in advance of the regular council meeting at 7 to discuss the US 27 corridor. I had gotten a call from Ron Bergeron earlier this week who made a request, not that this is his land use issue, it's a town zoning land use issue. However, he is the affected property owner, as the property owner out there.
The only affected property.
He is out of town on the 23rd. He has requested that we reschedule that for prior to the regular council meeting on February 13th. I want to make sure you're all okay with that and just confirm with you what starting time you would like for that so that we can properly promote that.
I have a question. Doug
ahead.
said he's the only property owner. To my knowledge, there was a couple properties on the west side that this was going to apply to also. Is that correct?
The gun range, Pop's gun range, and I don't know.
No,
the
but
other.
is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is
All right.
correct.
Let's just clarify.
But neither one of them have been at the meeting.
No, I understand, but it's, I was just.
Yep.
So if council is okay and you've confirmed me independently that you're all okay moving that to the 13th.
You okay with the 13th move? Yes.
I just
am.
want to get some
Jerry is.
feedback from the council. Do you want to start that at 6 o'clock? Do you want to start, from a starting time, as long as we're discussing this publicly, I wanted to ask you what time you wanted to start that meeting.
I don't
so
think
that we can
6
advertise
o'clock
it
is
properly.
early enough.
Yeah, but some of us do go to work.
Yeah, I think 6 is good, and if
why
we
not
need
that
to
day?
delay the other meeting, we'll delay it.
I'll just skip work.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you a different question. Can we move our regular 7 o'clock meeting to start at 8 o'clock?
I was just going to suggest 5:30.
It'll depend on what we have on that agenda as far as advertising requirements and
Okay.
some of those things.
Well, would,
Oops, sorry.
go ahead. No.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, this is probably silly too, but what about the day before and the day of, like 6 o'clock? So an hour and an hour. I mean, we could split it in half, in other words.
Yeah, I mean, we could start at 6 o'clock. If you don't complete it, we can.
Well, Bob mentioned
schedule a further
5:30
meeting as well.
Well, I meant the day before and then the day of, maybe to finish up whatever we don't finish the day before.
Yeah, I
Not
think
so
we'd
good,
rather
huh?
cram it in a day, not 2 days.
If I could, I'd keep it at 6, and if we need to spill into the 7 o'clock meeting, we can do that as a discussion item. Just schedule it. If we don't have any more discussion on it, we knock it off. Before we get into the reading of the ordinances and the main body.
5:30 or 6 works for me.
I think we're just going to cut a lot of people out of the discussion if we go in here
Well,
at 6.
You have plenty of time to get your people
Well,
out.
that's why I asked if we could move our regular start meeting from 7 to 8, and we go from 6 to 8 for the other part of this.
Well, based on what happened a couple of months ago now, if we did that and we advertised the council meeting starts at 8,
Yeah.
we finished up in 45 minutes,
Yeah,
we're sitting here for an hour and 15 minutes.
we are.
So, we can't start the meeting until the public.
I just don't see that getting done that quickly.
Oh, I'm not arguing, Doug.
Yeah.
I'm trying to come up with the right thing. That's, Gary, maybe you're saying put it on the council meeting as a discussion item?
If it warrants it, yeah.
When is this for? What's the date again?
February 13th, day before Valentine's Day.
Day
This
before
is for
Valentine's Day.
Bergeron 27.
I don't know, it's kind of a catch-22. People who really want to be here are gonna really, because they're gonna have plenty of notice now. Everybody that's here is gonna notice it, and if we get it out there and advertise it, they'll have plenty of notice to take and make sure that they could possibly be here at 5:30.
I don't have a problem with
You know.
5:30. I mean,
I'm good with
takes me
5:30.
20 minutes to get here from work, so I'm
good
giving
with
10 minutes
5:30.
for traffic.
You know.
Okay.
5:30,
I'm
okay?
okay with 5:30. I'm okay with 5 o'clock. I'm
Right.
more concerned about anybody out
Audience.
here
Yeah.
Right.
who might be stuck in downtown Fort Lauderdale at 5 o'clock. Or, people who have regular work schedules and they don't get out till 5. Give them the opportunity.
Listen, you want to go later? I don't care.
Well, why don't we do something like a 6 o'clock and a 7:30? So we're not sitting
Okay,
here
do that.
There you
for
go.
45 minutes.
If
If it comes to that.
Start the council meeting at 7:30, and we'll start the workshop, or whatever we're going to call it, at 6 o'clock.
That way we're not sitting here 45 minutes, maybe only a half an hour.
Okay.
Well, hey,
Okay?
it won't work like that. We'll run it right to the end.
Okay, so we'll do the special meeting at 5:30, at 6 o'clock, followed by the council meeting at 7:30.
Correct.
Okay, I think we got clear consensus on that, thank you. Another item I wanted to bring up is the landscaping maintenance contract and the town facilities maintenance contracts are currently out to bid. We had a mandatory pre-bid meeting earlier this week, which was
Good turnout,
very,
I heard.
very well attended. Yeah, very well attended. We're hoping for some good things on responses on those bids. We, however, got those out a little bit late, unfortunately, because we've been shorthanded in finance, as you're all aware. The current contracts are set to expire mid-February. The procurement process will not be complete, but I do want to give you a heads up publicly that we've contacted both existing vendors, both Prestige and Reliance, who have offered to extend under the same terms and the same pricing as we have now until such time as we complete the procurement.
Good news.
So I just want to give you a heads up on that. We'll move through it, obviously, as quickly as we can to get it back before you. But we'll continue to observe the existing contracts if council's all right with that. Okay?
Yep.
Yep, I'm good.
Keith, did you want to touch on that other item?
On the other issue?
Yeah.
As the council is aware, a public-private partnership was submitted to the town for review relating to the potential use of the Correction Corporation of America property. Andy and I and Marty have reviewed the proposal. We put it out for bid. The bid's closed, et cetera. It's the only one who bid on the property. That it warrants review for the council to determine whether or not it desires or has an interest in the P3 or does not. Obviously, because it's dealing with the CCA property, Andy and I both felt that there may be interest, especially in your district, Councilmember Hartman out west, to be notified of such meeting. And as a result, I suggested to Andy that the council may determine to do this as a sole purpose meeting that's advertised clearly, put on the message board, et cetera, so that anyone who would be interested could come out to it, rather than just putting it on a regular commission agenda. So I just wanted to bring that up with Andy for your consideration to see whether or not you want us to schedule that as a special sole purpose meeting, or if you wanted
do you
to.
feel we need for that?
I think it's going to be a pretty lengthy meeting. I don't know if
Okay.
Andy disagrees with me, but.
All right, so what are you thinking, Andy?
It could very easily be a 2-hour or 2-hour plus meeting. So
Okay.
I think it will take some time, so I think there would be some advantage to do that as a special meeting. My only hesitancy now is trying to select a date, because legal's in the process of finalizing the contract, which then needs to go to the applicant for their consideration to execute the contract, to bring it back before you. And so as I said, my only hesitancy is I'm not sure what that time period is. Obviously, the goal would be to get it before the council as soon as possible, so that you're able to consider it and accept it or reject it, depending on what you choose. But I don't have a suggested date for you at this point, but I do want to publicly, as Keith is doing, let you know that we're working on this and that we do want to make sure that we have sufficient time to promote it and advertise it to the public.
Yeah, mainly the point for me bringing it up was, would you all want it as a special set-aside meeting, or do you want it as a regular commission agenda? That was really the purpose. The contract should be done in the next week and a half, send over to them, but of course, we don't know when they're going to
Let
send
me
it
ask
back.
you a different question. From what you tell me, it's going to be pretty self-explanatory.
Well, there's nothing that's self-explanatory when it comes to leasing a property for a significant period of time.
The
It's going to
contract part will be, and you're doing it.
the contract will be clear if you want to sit and read a 60-page contract.
No, you're
but
gonna
but
read it.
but that's what I'm saying. I'm sure there's going to be questions by both council and residents about what the contract does and the potential impacts to the community.
Here's a question for Andy based on that. We don't know, none of us out here know what the agendas are that are coming up.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. We get it the same time you all get it when it's publicly put out there. So Andy, do we have heavy schedule coming up or could we incorporate this into a regular meeting?
So we have one late night?
Yeah,
till
like
11
if you only
o'clock?
have one item on or something, you know what I mean? We've had that happen before.
Or plan
I will search ahead and see if I can find an appropriate hole on an existing council meeting night that might be appropriate. If we have quasi judicial matters and other things, we've got obviously what may be a lengthy discussion at the next meeting on some of the nursery ordinance. We've got the US 27 prior to the regular meeting on the 13th. That kind of precludes those two meetings because they may turn out to be long in and of themselves. So they may not be worthy candidates for that. So the next regular meeting, now we're into the end of February, and it's something that we may want to get before you prior to that if we're able to do that.
I would
So-
think we'd want it before that.
Yeah, I would think we'd have some kind of a special meeting, kind of mull things over, and then bring it back to our regular.
No, you got to have a meeting and vote on it.
Oh,
You're
right
going to have
away.
a special meeting just for that purpose and vote on it.
Keith indicated earlier that he expects the contract will be done in the next week to week and a half.
Okay.
So let's say a week and a half and be conservative. It goes to the applicant's attorney for their review.
Right.
I don't expect to have it back from them prior to the next meeting, which is the 23rd. And perhaps at that point, we'll be able to look at the calendar and select a date and schedule a date, which would allow us sufficient time to properly notice it.
Okay.
Just give us sufficient time because this is something,
This is huge.
yeah, well, not only huge, but none of us know anything about it.
Right.
By law.
Right.
Yeah, by law.
So I don't want to short shrift whoever's coming in
That's
here.
why I said special meeting.
Yeah,
I don't have
you
an
know.
issue at all with that special meeting. Just
Either way, I just want to have enough time to prepare,
Yeah.
so.
Okay. All right, so we'll really make that decision on the 23rd as far as how the calendar ahead looks, but at least now you know what's coming.
Okay.
And we'll continue to work on that. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Okay.
It was enough.
All right. Let's see. Number 8, resolution. Russell, if you would, please.
Certainly, Mayor. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving a settlement agreement with Diamond Eye Stables LLC relating to its 2018 and 2019 fire assessments, authorizing the mayor, town administrator, and town attorney to execute any and all documents necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution and providing an effective date.
Mayor, as you're aware, Diamond Eye Stables LLC entered into 2 separate litigations with the town of Southwest Ranches, challenging the methodology of your fire assessments. So the lawsuit claimed that not only were their assessments flawed, but basically all of the methodology in the fire assessments were flawed for calendar years 2018 and 19. As a result, litigation ensued, and our council, our town administrator, has had a wonderful working dialogue with the property owner. They have met on numerous occasions, and they have brought forward this settlement agreement that the property owner and Andy have asked us to draw up, which we did. So it's here for your approval based upon the agreement between Andy and the property owner who's here in the audience as well. And I also want to thank Mary Gay Chapels, who did assist tremendously in bringing those two parties to the table to resolve their differences.
Awesome, thank you. Need a motion?
Make
and
a motion to
second?
approve.
Second.
Okay. Any public comment in this matter?
Fred Cox, 4940 Thoroughbred Lane. Thank you, Doug, for allowing us to speak. And I'm going to get this quote right this time. I tried to do it on the phone today and messed it up. I believe it was John F. Kennedy said the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. I didn't know Dr. Iribar until one of these council meetings, and I met him. Very sympathetic to his issue and cause. But you're diminishing my rights when you improperly and incorrectly impose a commercial fire fee on an agriculture building, which you did for Dr. Iribar. He bought the property in 2014. Unbeknownst to him, part of the barn was labeled as commercial, but not all. I believe Marty, in his work and investigation, discovered in 2018 that it wasn't. So Marty did encompassed all of it as commercial. Never was a commercial barn. The town is agreeing that it's not a commercial barn in 2019, agreeing that it won't be in 2020. So why won't we refund this money for 2018? He's overpaid 15, 16, 17. He has legal rights to discuss 18 and 19. We're saying, okay, you're not commercial in 2019. You're not going to be in 2020. Why wasn't he not commercial in 2018? We know what's right. What we did was wrong. It was an error. It can easily be resolved and fixed. I think we need to give him back, and we owe him the money for 2018. And I find it sad for all of us, that it takes lawsuits and to spend this kind of money on this issue when it could have been resolved in 2 or 3 meetings of mediation. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Noel Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. I'm glad that it's resolved and the parties have agreed, and that'll put an end to it. My only question is, how much did it cost the town in this, in dollars and cents? I'm curious about that. And if going forth in the future, if when the first lawsuit was filed, or similar, we can enter into negotiations amicably and make sure that these sort of things get resolved faster and to the benefit of everyone concerned. Thank you.
David Kaczynski, 6411 Holity Trail. I'm wondering why this lawsuit took so long. I sympathize with Dr. Manny for the his barn being determined to be commercial in certain years, but now it's ag in certain years. I echo the same comments of Mr. Cox with he should be refunded 2018, determined back to be ag for that year as well. And I can only guess that the legal costs in defending this exceeded $50,000. That's just a guess. And I think it could have been resolved a lot sooner. Thanks.
Any additional public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to the council. Any other additional comments?
I have a couple questions. And I don't know if I'm allowed to actually speak to Mr. Isbar. If I can ask him a question, would you come up to the mic for a moment?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. First one is, did you spend $50,000 on an attorney?
More.
Did we come after you and sue you?
Not this time, but
Okay.
you know. the thing is, what will you sue me? I'm being the one hurt, not you.
The bottom line is, are you happy with what transpired? Are you okay with it? We're
I'm not happy with it, but I will do it because it's the less of all the evils.
lesser than the evil.
Right. I mean, it's, my father used to say a bad deal is better than a good fight. And I've been having a good fight so far, but I'm willing to make a bad deal just to end it. All right?
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
Okay.
I do have a question for you, sir, as long as you're at the podium.
Right.
Were you offered this deal previously?
I'm sorry?
Was this offered previously?
Yes, I spoke to Marty about, the classification, and he told me, that's the way it is. And basically, just wait. Everybody else is going to be charged what you're being charged. So I said, that's crazy. And it happened that everybody's barn got turned into a commercial barn, and that's why they had the big problem and the big meeting, and everybody showed up. But I had already been in a lawsuit with the town for over a year, bringing them, to understand that this was just a barn, for God's sake. It wasn't Lowe's, it wasn't a Publix.
Right.
It was just a barn.
Well, another error.
Nobody would listen unless you go to court for some reason. It should be a better way of solving problems like this than going through, court.
Well, like I said, all of us up here, when that came through, it was bad, it was wrong, and we did our job. We stopped it.
Great. Thank you.
That's the bottom line. We stopped it. We did what we were supposed to do, all of us, so.
Thank
Okay,
you.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Call the question, please. What? You want something else?
No, if you had any questions,
No.
I'm happy to answer.
No.
Or-
Call the question.
Councilmember Amundson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hartman,
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Here. Pass me the restroom. It's the next, just the next.
That makes it official.
Item 9.
Next resolution.
Item 9, Mayor, is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving an agreement with GPE Engineering and General Contracting Corp. in the amount of $1,069,654.60 for construction of the Transportation Surface and Drainage Ongoing Rehabilitation, or TISDOR, Roadway Improvements Program for Southwest 188th and its side streets, approving a budget amendment to the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, authorizing the mayor, town administrator, and town attorney to execute the agreement, and providing an effective date.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
We're going to open this up to the public?
Yeah.
Public comment?
Jim Lasky, 5780 Southwest 188th Avenue. I don't know if it's been corrected, but John Eastman has sent a copy of the drawings. And I looked through it real fast, and I was curious about what performance sod is. Well, it's a DOT term for the junk you put on the side of a highway, which is, and I don't remember the exact name. However, we don't have that in the front of our house. We have all the other types of grasses. It's going to conflict. And what I understand about this grass, it's self-seeding. So every year it has to reseed or something like that because it's designed to be able to live without a lot of maintenance. Well, you can kill it by mowing it too much. But anyway, we don't want that kind of grass, do we? It's an obvious mistake. I just want to know if you could read that document and apply that term and just make one little change. I can't imagine it's any cheaper. It might even, be the same. So, take a look. Thank you.
It's either zoysia or it's ryegrass, one or the other.
Bahia.
Okay.
The same grass.
David Sears, 5501 Southwest
Yeah.
130th Avenue. With this project, are you going to be paving the dead-end streets with that also? That sounds like a waste of money.
done, and this is the most cost-effective time to do it when you're doing everything else. Okay, that's it? Public comment closed?
Close, right. Gotta say for somebody to say, call the question.
Any other questions? Everybody's good?
I actually have a question for Rod.
All right.
Rod,
Rod, could we get you to come up, please?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to ask you this last night at the Drainage Committee meeting, but a lot of years, we've gotten started with these projects right at the beginning of the rainy season. When do you expect this to, what do you expect this to, the duration, start and finish? And I'm talking about the construction piece, because I realize there's multiple components.
I'm trying to recall. I think we gave them 120 days for final. So I think it's 90 substantial, 120 final.
Okay.
So as soon as it's awarded, we're going to move forward and basically contact the contractor, set up a pre-con, and get ready to go.
So we should be finished before the rainy season this year?
Yes, that's our intent, for sure.
Good, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ready?
Call the question.
Councilmember Edmondson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Question number 10, please.
This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, transferring the town's code compliance and enforcement services in planning, zoning, permitting, and land use services to J.A. Medina LLC, entering into a new agreement with J.A. Medina LLC, which establishes the scope and compensation for its services, authorizing the mayor, town administrator, and town attorney to enter into an agreement and providing an effective date.
Keith?
Yeah, Mayor, as you're well aware and the council's aware, Robert Solera has moved to Georgia to pursue other endeavors. Our town administrator has worked actively with Julio and with staff to figure out the best way to ensure consistency within the town with the knowledge of code enforcement, the town's codes, and how to proceed. Julio's now worked, I think it's been 7 years at the town. It's hard to imagine that, but 7 years at the town. Originally, what they were contemplating doing was an assignment of the contract, and legally, we did not want that to occur. So we asked for a new contract to be executed with the new entity to make some modifications that need to be made and to move on. So I thank Andy for diligently working to maintain the staff and Julio for taking over this contract and taking over the role as the chief code enforcement officer for the town. We had our first meeting without Mr. Solera, and it went as well as every other meeting we've had. So there's been no slowdown at all in service, and he's already geared up with 2 new code officers, including one with a familiar face who had worked in the town in the past, named Blair. So hopefully this will be approved, and congratulate Julio on this new endeavor by taking over the services directly.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Awesome. Any public comment on this matter?
Steve Rycrease, 5120. I'd just like to say that all my experiences with Julio have been excellent. I think he does a great job. You all are doing the right thing, and good work. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to the council. Any additional questions?
Mayor, I just want to state one thing publicly for the record.
Yep.
Julio's doing the contract for the exact same price, so I don't want anyone to think that there's changes. But the only difference that the contract does is in certain positions, it gives him a little bit of a salary flexibility so that he can hire but award some of the dollars a little differently. Accordingly based on position. So other than that, it's the same dollar amount. It still comes before you every budget cycle to approve and to allocate. And so he agreed to match all of the prior terms with just that one caveat.
Okay.
Can you come up for a second? I got a question or two.
Look out.
Not at all. I'm assuming you're going to keep a similar work schedule as Robert had in terms of somebody who's nights and weekends and the other person working weekdays?
Yes, council member. We plan to have, we actually have our administrative coordinator who actually comes in at 8 in the morning. And aside from that, we will have the night shift and weekend officer who will be here till 8 p.m. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then we'll be 8 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday, along with another officer to, from 8:30 to 5 to assist me.
Right, right.
And that's actually all called out directly in the agreement, so
Yes.
we're protected.
Yes, the hours and the staffing.
Good. I want to compliment you. I recognize the rough job you have. I mean, code enforcement takes a special kind of person. And you've done a great job. I know one of the two people that you've brought on board, she's done a great job with the town so far. I get feedback from residents on code enforcement, and it hasn't always been so good in the past. However, whenever they bring up Julio, I hear professionalism. He's extremely polite. He articulates whatever the problem is, really explains it well so they understand it. So keep up the good work.
Thank you for that, council member. And thank you, the mayor and everyone else in council for your support and the opportunity to continue servicing the town.
We look forward to this, Julio.
Awesome.
It's going to be
you.
quite a ride.
Thank you.
Awesome. Call the question, please.
Yes.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to
Yeah,
take a moment
go right ahead.
and thank the council for their consideration. As was indicated, Julio's worked in the town for 7 years. He's just been a great fixture in the office, gets along really well with everybody. The staffing in that department, while they're a separate entity from a corporate standpoint, they're part of the team, they're part of the family, and I'm very pleased that we're going to be able to continue that relationship. So I just want to thank you for that.
Awesome. All right. Approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve. Up, Gary, you got it. I'll second it.
Okay. Any public comment on our minutes have been corrected in the past? Any changes or corrections needed? Seeing none. Okay, back to us. Any recommendations, suggestions, or changes needed?
Nope. Let's
Guess
go
not.
home.
Call it.
Councilmember Amundson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Adjournment.
Motion to approve.
Adjourn? I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
The trailer data's still here.
The trailer data is still here.
I said it was in there because that just reflects the language that was in the ordinance.
It's not going
Very
anywhere.
clear tonight that that's dead, but it was in the ordinance as drafted. That's why it's reflected.
Yeah, I promise you
It's
it will
not going
die.
anywhere. Clearly, it's not going anywhere. No, that was a summary prepared in advance of what was in the ordinance itself.
It will be dead, I promise you.
Yeah, it's not good.